keep your applause going for the only reason to applaud in this movie, the coolest girl in the world, Elsie Fisher.
I'm assuming sometimes you sit through screenings, sometimes you don't. You're so vulnerable on screen, you're so authentic, and you show so much, and you allow us to go on this ride with you. How is it different when you watch it with an audience? Is that scarier? Does it feel strange to sort of watch people like us watch you?
Yeah. I've always watched it with an audience. The first time I saw it was at Sundance, and yeah, it was weird.
And do you
really cool.
There were moments actually during the screening where I thought if I turned off the film and guessed what kind of film I was watching, there are moments that sound like it's a horror film, like the audience. So what was your response to everyone's response the first time you watched?
It was like a huge mix of emotions. I mean, it was such a weird thing because I was also, I was focusing on the audience and how they were reacting, and then I was watching my dad next to me react, and that was weird. And then I was also like, I immediately started crying when it played because I'm like, oh my God, we made this. Yeah.
What was the most? I was very surprised by what the most horrifying thing for her to watch was. What was the worst? What was the most embarrassing thing for you to watch?
The Rick and Morty scene.
Afterwards, I was like, what was tough? Like the pool scene, whatever. She's like, no, me talking about Rick and Morty, I can't even, because I've never seen the show. I heard it was good, but the two of them liked it, so I just had them, and yeah, that's what kills her, surprisingly.
Could you walk us through sort of the origin of this film and when in your mind it became a movie?
Yeah, I wanted to write something about the internet, and I wanted to write about my feelings at the time. I was feeling very anxious, so I wanted to write about my anxiety, and it felt like my anxiety was linked to the internet somehow. So I started just trying to write like a big story with a bunch of intersecting characters because I thought, oh, these, what I have to express is so large. And then stumbled on the voice of this kid and found that I could say everything I wanted through her. So it really wasn't setting out to make an eighth grade story. I watched a lot of videos of kids talking online about themselves. The boys tended to talk about Minecraft. The girls tended to talk about their souls. So it was just like slightly. I'm not to be cruel to the boys. I'm saying
there are a lot of films about just adolescent years, but 8th grade, I was watching this thinking that's a particular kind of suck.
Yeah. Well, I think questions are being asked of kids younger culturally. By the time they get to high school, they're kind of blasé and over it. It feels like so. Yeah, I wanted to talk about that time. And I don't know, the internet kind of makes 8th graders of us all. You know what I mean? I watch my friends or myself on the internet and I'm being like, we're just acting like 8th graders. So it felt like, I don't know, I just feel like they are feeling things so purely and intensely. And I wanted to make a pure and intense movie.
I was talking to Brian from the festival before, and we were talking about gender and just the idea that this is a girl's story. And he was saying, well, I see some of myself in this, but it does seem very specific. And the scene in the car, this is something that, this question is for both of you. How important, a young girl's story is always very different. You chose to identify with a young woman in this film, but it also poses completely different narrative questions.
Right. Yeah, I was very, very violently aware of my position as a man in charge of a young girl's story the whole time. No, really, truly. But I've been in a relationship with a woman who's a writer-director who I respect a lot, and so she's the only eyes on my stuff when it's being written. So I knew if I had to be called bullshit on, I could get called on that. And so I also knew I wasn't writing a novel; I was making a movie. So I would collaborate with her and could defer to her always, and said always, the truth of this, I don't. Because there's two disconnects. I was never a 13-year-old girl, and I was never a 13-year-old right now. And both of those things lend themselves to a specific experience, I think. But also, at the end of the day, I had to be respectful of that and humble and subjugate myself to what she was going through and the truth that I didn't know. But also trust, I can see myself in her. And, there's a pretty sexist, narrative in art that, the only stories about the human condition are about a sad comedian wandering around New York City, or a male poet in the woods, you know what I mean? And why why can't she be a conduit for everything? You know, this isn't a story about my younger self. I hope 40-year-old men can see themselves in her, you know.
The question was the dialogue performed as written, and how do you perform it spontaneously?
Most of the dialogue is pretty close to the script, I'd say. And I don't know, part of it was I didn't read the script too much. I kept it, well no, really, I only read the full script once, and then I got the lines for each day. So I kind of kept it in the back of my head and had to really think of it.
To her credit, it is way more written than it appears. You know, the monologues are written, okay, yeah, so the thing about being yourself is, I'm reading this off a piece of paper. You know, it's a technical performance that was reliable and done take after take. I wasn't making Homeward Bound, you know what I mean? It wasn't just truly, I was worried about that, you know, but this isn't just capturing her chaos and making it into a story. This is a technical performance, so it's all the credit in the world to her.
The question was about the casting process.
I saw every 13-year-old actor in the world, you know, for this, truly, and it never was alive, you know, once, truly. They're cool, they're interesting kids. A lot of the kids, I'd meet them and they'd be so interesting, and I'd talk to them and they'd be nervous and excited, and 10 things were going on in their face. And then you give them a scene, and then it becomes happy's like this and sad's like that, you know. And it was very important that it didn't feel like a confident kid playing shy. It needed to feel like a shy person playing confident. So the thing of how am I going to find someone that's vulnerable enough to feel what Kayla feels and yet strong enough to carry a movie? It just seemed absolutely impossible. And then she came in, it was she read and it was just alive for the first time. I tested her 7 times, but I never saw another kid more than once. And I remember writing it for her, but I wrote it when she was 11, so I didn't. But what was it like for you? What was the audition stuff for you?
It was probably some of the most fun auditions I've ever done. Bo is really nice. No, truly. I went to an audition right after, and I handed them my headshot, and it didn't have as much of my beautiful acne on my face, and they're like, "Where's all the red?"
They said that. They said, "Where's your acne?" on your headshot. These fucking awful casting director people.
Exactly.
It's no, truly, it's this. It's just the worst people in the world. You know.
Yeah, but going for these auditions was extremely fun. Well, those ones, yeah, not the other ones. And there was a lot of improvisation allowed, and I got to work with the script actually. And it was
That's
amazing.
what it always was. If it didn't sound right, it was the script's fault, always. You know what I mean? If it didn't sound right, it felt well, this is obviously the script's fault. But it was just it was more just give the kid permission, and with all the kids, give them permission to be inarticulate. I tell them, I didn't say a complete sentence until I was 24. You know what I mean? Truly, the story of being young is being inarticulate, and there's so many, things with young people, and they're young poet laureates, and it's what the fuck, no one, and the story of being a kid is sounding like you just drank a glass of milk, and you're blah, 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 you know, so just giving them permission to fail and flail up there.
Thanks to both of you. You made
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here.
Brian,
Appreciate it.
You.
Have a good rest of the festival.
The Independent Film Festival Boston. A festival of people.